She screamed for help, but no one came. Neighbors shut their doors, and no one paid much attention. Just when it seemed too late, a German shepherd charged onto the scene. What he did next shocked everyone and turned a moment of fear into a story the world would never forget. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The night was still, almost too still for a neighborhood that usually buzzed with laughter and the hum of televisions behind glowing windows. A cold wind swept down the empty street, rattling a loose gate and scattering leaves across the pavement. In the distance, a woman's footsteps echoed hurriedly as she walked home alone, clutching her purse tighter against her chest. She wasn't prepared for the shadow that slipped out from the alley. A man lunged, his hand grabbing her arm, his voice a harsh whisper demanding her silence. Panic flared in her chest as she fought back, her screams tearing through the quiet night. "Help! Somebody help me!" But the windows stayed closed. Curtains twitched, doors remained bolted. Neighbors heard her cries, but fear silenced them. A jogger at the corner glanced her way, then turned his head and kept moving. Her pleas grew more desperate, echoing down the empty street, each one swallowed by indifference. Tears streaked her face as she struggled, her voice cracking with exhaustion. The attacker tightened his grip, dragging her toward the shadows. Her heart pounded with the crushing realization no one was coming. Her voice trembled in one final, broken cry for help. And then, in the silence that followed, came a sound no one expected, sharp, powerful, and unyielding. The bark of a German shepherd. The bark split the night like thunder, startling both attacker and victim. From the end of the street, a massive German shepherd charged forward, paws pounding against the pavement with furious speed. His eyes locked onto the scene, ears sharp, teeth flashing beneath the glow of a streetlight. The attacker cursed, jerking the woman closer like a shield, but the dog was unstoppable. His body moved with purpose, head low, muscles tense, every step radiating a force of protection. The woman's breath hitched. For the first time since her nightmare began, hope flickered in her chest. Neighbors who had stayed hidden now peered through curtains, drawn by the sound. They whispered, astonished, as the shepherd closed the distance. Unlike them, he didn't hesitate. Unlike them, he didn't freeze. The attacker shoved the woman aside, preparing to defend himself, but the shepherd's growl deepened into something primal. The sound carried down the entire block, rattling windows, demanding attention. The woman crawled back against a porch, clutching her scraped arm, eyes wide with both fear and awe. She realized something undeniable. The dog hadn't come by accident. He had chosen to answer when everyone else ignored her cries. The night was no longer silent. It belonged to the shepherd now. The attacker's grip loosened as the shepherd lunged, his growl erupting into a snarl that sent chills down the woman's spine. The man stumbled back, fumbling for something in his pocket. A knife glinted under the streetlight. Gasps rippled from the neighbors now clustered behind their windows, frozen in horror. The dog didn't hesitate. With a powerful leap, he closed the gap, his jaws snapping inches from the attacker's hand. The knife clattered to the ground, skidding across the pavement. The shepherd stood over it, teeth bared, body poised between the trembling woman and the man who had tried to drag her away. "Get back!" the attacker roared, swinging wildly with his fists. But every strike met only air. The shepherd dodged, with instinctive precision, countering with lunges that drove the man further into the open, away from his victim. His growls echoed like thunder, warning the man that the fight was already lost. The woman pressed against the porch, her heart racing. She had begged for help, yet it wasn't people who had answered. It was this fearless guardian. Her eyes, filled with tears, not just from terror, but from the realization that this German shepherd had become her only shield against the darkness. The attacker's bravado faltered. For the first time that night, he knew fear. The attacker's courage shattered. With one last shove, he broke free and bolted into the night, his footsteps echoing down the empty street until they disappeared. The knife lay abandoned on the ground, glinting in the pale moonlight. The German shepherd didn't chase. Instead, he turned back, his chest heaving, eyes locked on the woman huddled against the porch. Slowly, Cautiously, he approached her, his tail lowered, his massive frame blocking her from any lingering danger. The growls that once shook the night softened into a protective whine. The woman's trembling hands reached out, brushing against his fur. She felt warmth, steadiness, a living wall between her and the terror that still clung to her bones. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Thank you. Thank you." Doors creaked open at last. Neighbors stepped onto their porches, faces pale, eyes wide. They had heard her screams, ignored them out of fear, and now they watched in silence as the shepherd stood tall, guarding the woman with a loyalty none of them had shown. The sirens came minutes later, flashing lights splashing across the street. Officers hurried to her side, but the woman shook her head. "He saved me," she said firmly, pointing to the shepherd. "When no one else would, he did." In that moment, the night didn't belong to fear anymore. It belonged to the dog who refused to walk away. At the station, the woman repeated her story, every word circling back to the same truth. A German shepherd had saved her life. Officers exchanged skeptical glances until they saw the dog themselves. He sat in the corner, calm yet watchful, his golden eyes never leaving the door. One of the older detectives froze the moment he saw him. "I know that dog," he murmured. Pulling out a file, he laid a faded photograph on the desk. There he was, the same shepherd, younger but unmistakable, standing proudly beside a decorated K-9 officer who had died in the line of duty years earlier. The room fell silent. This wasn't a stray. He was a retired service dog, believed lost after his handler's death. Trained to protect, conditioned to respond to cries for help, his instincts hadn't faded. He hadn't just acted out of chance. He had done exactly what he was trained for, answering when no one else dared. The woman covered her mouth, her tears returning for a new reason. The dog she had thought was a miracle was, in fact, a hero carrying a legacy. That night, whispers spread through the neighborhood. Fear turned to shame, shame turned to awe. The shepherd wasn't just a savior. He was a soldier who never quit his duty. Days after the attack, the neighborhood felt different. Where fear had once silenced voices, now conversations echoed with one name, the shepherd. Children pointed when they saw him, neighbors whispered with reverence, and the woman who had nearly lost her life walked proudly with him at her side. The police offered to transfer the dog back into official care, but the woman shook her head. "He chose to save me," she said firmly. "I won't let him be alone again." And so, the German shepherd found a new home, not behind bars or in a kennel, but in the warmth of someone whose life he had saved. News spread beyond the neighborhood. Local papers ran the headline, "Ignored by people, saved by a dog." Strangers stopped by just to catch a glimpse of the animal who had done the unthinkable. To them, he wasn't a stray, or even just a retired K-9. He was proof of what loyalty looked like when courage failed in others. If you were moved by this incredible story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay with us for more heartwarming and unbelievable stories.